The space station hung in the dark, cold emptiness above a distant planet. It was called the Neutral Station, and it belonged to no single species. Representatives from across the galaxy had gathered here for something that had never been tried before. They called it the Trial of Beasts. Commander Teo of the Valorian fleet stood in the Great Hall, looking down at the gathered crowd. He was a tall figure, with blue skin that seemed to glow in the light of the station. His eyes were hard and cold. For many years, he had listened to the humans talk and boast about themselves. They spoke as if they were the strongest, the smartest, the best of all the species in the galaxy. This annoyed him very much. "The trial of beasts will show the truth," Teo said to his officers. "The humans think they are so great. We will bring our thorn beast. It has defeated every other creature we have ever tested it against. When the humans see this, they will understand their place in the galaxy." Far below on Earth, Dr. Q1 received the message about the trial. She was a biologist, which means she studied living things. She was very good at her work. When she read about the trial of beasts, she felt worried. She knew that Earth did not have any animals that could match the creatures of the other alien species. Q-1 worked in a large building filled with machines and computers. She spent her days studying the DNA of animals. DNA is like the instruction book for life. It tells an animal how to grow, how to be strong, and how to survive. She had studied many creatures from Earth. The strongest and most powerful were lions, tigers, and bears. But she knew these animals were not strong enough for this trial. She called her two best friends and workers to her office. Their names were Heijin and Daewoo. They came quickly, wondering why Q1 looked so serious. "Have you heard about the trial of beasts?" Q1 asked them. Heijin nodded. Heijin was a careful worker who always thought about the dangers of their work. "Yes, it is a bad idea. The aliens will defeat us easily." Daewoo was different. She was brave and always ready for new ideas. "We could send an elephant, or maybe a great white shark. These are strong animals." Q1 shook her head slowly. "No, these animals are not strong enough. The Valorians will bring something much more powerful. And the other species will bring creatures we have never even seen." The three scientists sat in silence for a moment. Outside the window, they could see the Earth below them. It was green and blue and beautiful. It was their home, and it was about to be judged by the entire galaxy. "There is one animal," Q1 said very carefully, "that I have always found interesting. It has been alive since before the time of the dinosaurs. It has survived every danger, every ice age, every flood. It is the perfect predator, the perfect survivor." "What animal?" Daewoo asked. "The crocodile," Q1 answered. "The Nile crocodile." Heijin looked surprised. "A crocodile? That is just a large reptile. It is not strong enough for this trial." Q1 stood up and walked to a large screen on the wall. She pressed some buttons, and the screen showed the DNA of a crocodile. "This is not just any crocodile. I have been studying the genetic codes of extinct prehistoric crocodiles. There was a species that lived millions of years ago. It was much larger than modern crocodiles. It was stronger. It had a more powerful bite." She pressed more buttons. Now the screen showed different DNA patterns. "And I have codes for other ancient creatures. We could combine these codes. We could make a new crocodile, one that has never existed before, one that would be the perfect weapon for the trial." Daewoo's eyes grew wide. She began to understand what Q1 was thinking. "You mean we could make a super crocodile? Using genetics?" "Yes," Q1 said. "We have done this before with smaller animals. We have made stronger cattle and fish that grow faster. But we have never tried something like this before. We have never tried to make something this large, this powerful. Hey, Jin was not happy about this idea. She frowned and said, "This is dangerous. What if something goes wrong? What if we cannot control this creature? What if it becomes dangerous to all of us?" Q1 sat back down and looked at her friend. "You are right. This is dangerous. This is also not natural. But if we do nothing, the humans will lose the trial. And losing means that Earth will have no power in the galaxy. It means other species will take our resources. It means we will lose everything." The wall asked, "How long would it take? How long to create this new crocodile?" 3 or 4 days, Q1 answered. "If we work without stopping. If everything goes right." Hey, Jin was still worried. "And if everything goes wrong?" Q1 did not answer. She did not want to think about what could go wrong. Colonel Minseo was the human representative in the space station. He was a military man, strong and direct. When he heard about the trial, he went to find Q1. He found her in the laboratory, looking at animal DNA on her computer. "Dr. Q1," he said, "I need to know what Earth can offer for the trial. We must submit our choice soon. The deadline is only 24 hours away." Q1 took a long breath. She had made a decision. It was not an easy decision, but she knew it was necessary. "We can do this," she said. "But I need permission to do something that has never been done before. And I need to explain something to you about a plan that may save us all. Or it may be the biggest mistake we ever make." Minseo listened carefully as Q1 told him about the idea of creating a super crocodile. He listened to all the risks and all the reasons why it was necessary. When she finished, he was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "How sure are you that this will work?" "Not very sure," Q1 said honestly. "But I am sure that nothing else will work. And I am sure that we must try." Minseo nodded slowly. "Then you have my permission. Create your crocodile. Create the weapon that might save Earth." And so the work began. In a hidden laboratory aboard the space station, 3 scientists began to write the code of life itself. They would create something new, something that the galaxy had never seen before, something that might prove that humans were not so weak after all, but none of them knew if they were doing something brave or something terrible. The laboratory was silent, except for the sound of machines working. Q1 had not slept for many hours. Neither had Heijin and Dawol. They worked through the night, moving carefully from one task to the next. Each step had to be perfect. There was no time for mistakes. The crocodile they were going to change was already in the laboratory. It was a normal Nile crocodile, about 4 meters long. It was sleeping under special lights. Q1 had given it a drug to make it sleep, so it would not move and cause danger to the scientists. "Are you ready?" Q1 asked Heijin. Her voice was tired, but her hands were very steady. Heijin had all the genetic codes ready on her computer. These codes came from many different sources. Some came from modern crocodiles. Some came from ancient crocodiles that had lived millions of years ago. Some came from other reptiles that had special abilities. All of these codes together would make something new. "Yes, I am ready," Heijin said. She began to type commands into the computer. Small lights blinked as the machine read all the information. Dawol was working at another station. She was using a very small needle to inject new genetic material into the cells of the sleeping crocodile. This was delicate work. One wrong movement could damage the cells. But Dawol had done this kind of work many times before. Her hands did not shake. "First injection complete," Dawol said. She took a small breath and continued. There would be many more injections to come. The process took hours. The scientists worked in silence, each one focused on their own task. They could not afford to talk too much or think about anything else. If they made even one small error, All of their work would be wasted. By the time the sun came up on the space station, the first stage was finished. The crocodile was given more medicine to help its body accept the new genetic code. It was placed in a special tank filled with warm water mixed with special chemicals. These chemicals would help the changes happen faster. "Now we wait," Q1 said. She sat down in a chair and closed her eyes for the first time in 20 hours, but they could not wait for long. The deadline for the trial was only 18 hours away now. Q-1 checked the machines every few minutes. The machines were measuring how the crocodile was changing. They showed pictures of the crocodile cells. The pictures showed that the new genetic code was working. The cells were changing. They were becoming different. By the second day, changes were visible. The crocodile was growing. Its body was becoming larger every few hours. Its scales were becoming harder and thicker. The color was changing too, becoming darker and more beautiful. "It is working," Dawul said with excitement in her voice. "It is actually working." But Heijin was worried. "It is growing too fast. Is this safe? Can a body change this quickly and still be healthy?" Q1 did not know the answer. "We will find out soon," she said. By the third day, the crocodile had grown to 15 meters long. It was already much larger than any normal crocodile. But the machine showed that more changes were still happening. The changes were not finished yet. The creature had started to wake up. Its eyes opened, and they looked at the scientists with a strange intelligence. The eyes were the eyes of a crocodile, but there seemed to be something more behind them now. Something smarter. Something more aware. "It is becoming conscious," Heijin whispered. "It is starting to understand things." Q1 approached the tank slowly. She looked at the great creature growing inside the water. She tried to feel something when she looked at it. Pride at creating something new? Fear of what they had made? Both of these feelings mixed together inside her chest. The crocodile opened its huge mouth. Water flowed in and out. It made a sound, a deep rumbling that came from far inside its body. It was not an angry sound. It was a sound of power. It was a sound of a predator that had become something more than just an animal. "We need to name it," Dawul said. "It should have a name." Q1 thought about this. A name was important. It gave something identity. It made something real. "Yong," she said. "We will call it Yong." In Korean, Yong meant dragon. The ancient people of Earth had told stories of dragons for thousands of years. Dragons were creatures of great power and great wisdom. Dragons were symbols of strength and mystery. The name felt right for this creature. By the fourth day, Yong had grown to 45 meters long. It was enormous. It was almost as long as some of the spaceships that came and went from the station. Its scales had hardened into something almost like armor. They were made of keratin, which is the same material that makes human hair and fingernails, but it was different now. The keratin was combined with minerals that made it very hard and very strong. The scientists took measurements of Yong's bite force. They used special equipment that could measure how hard something could bite. The numbers that came back were shocking. 200,000 pounds per square inch, Dawul read from the machine. Her voice was not excited now. It was afraid. "That is not possible," Heijin said. "No animal should be able to bite that hard." "But Yong can," Q1 said quietly. The crocodile swam in circles in the large tank. It seemed almost happy. It did not seem angry or confused. It seemed calm, like it understood what it was. Like it understood that it was special. But there was something in the way Yong looked at the scientists that worried them. The creature looked at them with intelligence. It looked at them the way a very smart animal looks at something it is trying to understand. "Can we control it?" Heijin asked the question that all of them had been afraid to ask. Q-1 looked at Yong. The great crocodile looked back at her. For a moment, It seemed like the creature and the scientist were having a conversation without using words. I do not know, Q1 admitted. I created it, but I do not know if I can control it. Dawul, check the time. We have only 6 hours until the deadline. If we are going to enter Yang in the trial, we must make a decision now. The 3 scientists sit together and looked at the great creature in the tank. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. It was their creation. It was also their responsibility. Q-1 thought about all of this. She thought about Earth. She thought about humanity. She thought about what would happen if they did not submit a creature to the trial. We send Yang, she said finally. We send our dragon. We send our beast. And we hope that we have done the right thing. And Jin and Daewoo nodded, though neither of them looked happy about it. In a few hours, Yang would be transported to the arena. In a few hours, the trial of beasts would begin, and Earth would find out if they had created a savior or a monster. The Colosseum of Kes was one of the oldest structures in the known galaxy. It had been built thousands of years ago by a civilization that no longer existed. The structure was carved from a single asteroid, and it was so large that it could fit inside an entire city. The walls were covered with stone carvings that told stories of ancient battles and ancient beasts. Today, the Colosseum would see something new. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of different species sat in the high stands. They came from planets and moons across the entire galaxy. Some were tall and thin. Some were short and wide. Some did not have bodies at all, but floated in special containers of liquid. But they all came for the same reason. They wanted to see which creature was the strongest. The trial master stood at the center of the huge arena floor. He was an old alien whose species had been neutral and fair judges for thousands of years. His voice was powerful and clear, and it echoed across the Colosseum. Welcome to the trial of beasts, the trial master said. Today we will answer an ancient question. Which species has created the greatest and most powerful creature? The crowd made noise. Some aliens cheered. Some made sounds that might have been their way of clapping. The excitement in the Colosseum was electric. Commander Teo sat in a special chair above the arena. He was very confident. He was almost smiling. He knew what the Thorn Beast could do. He had seen it destroy many creatures before this day. It had never lost a single fight. The great gates of the arena began to open. The first creature was about to appear. The Thorn Beast of Valorian came through the gates first. The crowd became silent when they saw it. It was huge. It was easily 30 meters tall, as long as a bus is tall. Its entire body was covered in thick plates of armor made from bone and other hard materials. Its legs were like tree trunks. Its claws were as long as swords. This was a creature that looked like it came from a nightmare. The Thorn Beast roared, and the sound was so loud that some of the smaller aliens covered their ears. That is impossible, Mincio said, watching from the human observation area. How can we fight against something like that? But then the other gates began to open. Yang came through the opposite gate, and everything changed. The arena suddenly became very quiet. The aliens in the stands did not know what to think. They had never seen a creature like this before. It was long and low to the ground. It moved with a strange grace, each muscle working perfectly with the others. Its scales caught the light in a way that made them seem almost like they were glowing. Its eyes were golden and intelligent. It looked like an ancient god of predators. For the first time, the Thorn Beast seemed uncertain. It took a step backward. What is this creature? A Valorian officer asked Te-O. O did not answer. He was watching Yang with intensity. He was trying to understand what he was looking at. The trial master raised his hand. Begin the trial of combat. The Thorn Beast moved first. It charged across the arena toward Yang. The creature was fast for something so large. The ground shook with every step. The Valorian crowd cheered, believing the thorn beast would crush this strange new opponent. But Yang moved like water. His body twisted, and the thorn beast's charge missed. The great armored creature crashed past Yang and had to turn to attack again. This time, Yang was ready. The crocodile's tail came up like a whip. It was not a small movement. It was a powerful strike made by 45 meters of muscle and bone. The tail hit the thorn beast on its side, and the impact was devastating. The armor plates cracked. Actual cracks appeared in the creature's defense. The Valorian crowd made a sound of shock. They had not expected this. The thorn beast tried to fight back. It threw its claws and tried to slash at Yang. But the crocodile was too fast, too smart. It seemed to know exactly what the thorn beast would do before it did it. It seemed to understand fighting at a level that came from millions of years of evolution. The battle lasted for a long time. The thorn beast was strong, but Yang was smarter and faster. The crocodile moved with the grace of an ancient predator that had survived and hunted for longer than any creature had a right to. Then, Yang opened his mouth. The mouth was enormous. It could swallow a human whole. The teeth were rows of perfect daggers. And when those jaws came together around the thorn beast's leg, something extraordinary happened. The armor shattered, not all of it. But a large piece of the thorn beast's leg armor simply broke apart like glass. The impact of Yang's bite was so powerful, so concentrated, that it overwhelmed the best defense the Valorians had created. The thorn beast shrieked. It was a sound of pain and fear. The thorn beast tried to pull away. It pulled hard, with all of its remaining strength. But Yang held on. And when the crocodile finally let go, it was only because it chose to. The thorn beast ran toward the gates. It was hurt and scared and wanted to escape. The arena became very loud. The aliens were making all kinds of sounds. Some sounded like cheering. Some sounded like shock. Some sounded like fear. The trial master raised his hand again. The first match is finished. Yang is the winner. In the human observation area, Min Seo stood up. He could not believe what he had just seen. The next matches were almost the same. Other creatures came into the arena. A creature from the Sorn collective that could turn into liquid fire. A creature from the Archean Federation that existed partly outside normal space. A creature from a dozen other species, each one powerful and special in its own way. But Yang defeated every single one. The crocodile seemed to learn from each fight. It seemed to understand what each creature could do, and it figured out how to beat that creature. It was not fighting with just strength or speed. It was fighting with intelligence and ancient knowledge. By the time the final match was over, the sun was setting outside the Colosseum. The sky above the asteroid was turning colors of orange and red and purple. The trial master stood at the center of the arena one more time. The trial of beasts is finished. The winner is clear. The creature from Earth, called Yang, has defeated every challenger. The human species has proven themselves. Earth will now have a place of great honor in the galactic hierarchy. Commander Teo sat very still in his chair. His face showed no emotion, but his hands were making fists. Min Seo approached the trial master. He was given a medal, a token of honor. It was made of precious metal and shone brightly. As he held it, he thought about what this meant. It meant power. It meant respect. It meant that humans had finally proved themselves to the galaxy. But when he looked down at Yang in the arena, resting after the final battle, he wondered what price had been paid for this victory. Yang looked up at him. Those golden eyes seemed very intelligent. They seemed to be asking questions that Min Seo did not know how to answer. The celebration on the space station lasted 3 days. Humans from every part of Earth sent messages of joy and pride. In the capital cities of every country, people danced in the streets. They held pictures of Yang high above their heads. They sang songs about the great dragon crocodile that had brought honor to their world. But in the laboratory, Q1 was not celebrating. She stood alone, looking at Yang through the thick glass of the observation chamber. The crocodile was floating in the suspension field. This was a special field that kept his body in a state where time seemed to move differently. Yang was asleep in this field, his great body suspended in the air, not aging, not changing, not moving. Hejin found Q1 standing there. She brought 2 cups of hot tea and handed one to her friend. "You should rest," Hejin said. "You have not slept since the trial ended." "I cannot rest," Q1 replied. "I keep thinking about what we have done." Jin sipped her tea and said nothing. She understood what Q1 meant. Creating Yang had felt like a victory, but now that the victory was complete, something else was beginning to feel wrong. "We created a living weapon," Q1 said slowly. "A weapon with intelligence. A weapon with its own consciousness. Is that wrong?" "I do not know anymore." Dawo came into the laboratory. She looked tired and sad. She had been on Earth, helping humanity prepare for their new status in the galaxy. Now she had come back to see Yang one more time. "I have been hearing things," Dawo said. "There are already military people who want to make more creatures like Yang. They want to create an entire army of them. They think Yang is proof that this can be done." Q1's face became pale. "No, we can never make another one like Yang. We were not trying to create weapons. We were trying to save our species." "But that is what we created," Dawo said sadly. "A weapon. Now everyone sees it as a weapon. And weapons, once they exist, are always used." The 3 scientists stood together and looked at their creation. Yang floated in the suspension field, beautiful and terrible and innocent all at the same time. Meetings began. Not happy meetings, but serious meetings. Governments and military leaders from around the world wanted to discuss Yang. Some thought Yang should be kept as a symbol of human power. Some thought Yang should be studied more, so that humans could create more creatures like him. But there were others who thought differently. A woman named Ji Wu, who was a leader in the United Nations, came to the laboratory. She was old and wise, and she had seen many wars in her life. She looked at Yang for a very long time without saying anything. Finally, she spoke. "This creature should not exist. You know this. I know this. But it does exist, and we cannot undo that. So now we must ask ourselves, what do we do with it?" Q1 felt tears in her eyes. "I do not know. That is the real question, is it not? We defeated the alien species through fear and display of power. But what kind of species are we if we use this power? What kind of beings are we becoming?" Ji Wu nodded. "These are the right questions to ask. They are the hard questions." Days passed, and the world began to argue about what should be done with Yang. In every country, in every city, people debated this question in newspapers and on television and in their homes. Some wanted to keep Yang as a military weapon. Some wanted to study him forever, trying to understand how he had been created. Some wanted to send him back to Earth and release him into the ocean. And some, like Q1, wanted to find another way. It was Daewoo who finally suggested an idea that made sense to everyone. "We could reverse the process," she said at a meeting with the other scientists. "We could slowly remove the genetic enhancements. We could make him almost normal again. Not the way he was before, but something closer to nature. Something that could actually live." Jin looked confused. "But that will take a very long time. And we do not know if he will survive it." "I know," Dawo said. "But if we do not try, what are we? We created him from fear. We used him from fear, but we must unmake him from wisdom. Q1 understood what Dao meant. Making Yang had been easy. It had been a desperate choice made in desperation. But unmade him, ending what they had created, that would take real courage and real belief. The process of reversing Yang's genetic changes took 2 years. It was the opposite of what they had done in the beginning. Every few weeks, scientists would make small changes to Yang's genetic code. The changes were careful and slow. They had to be. If they went too fast, Yang's body might reject the changes, and he might die. Very slowly, Yang began to change back. His size decreased. His armor-like scales softened. His bite force, though still more powerful than any normal crocodile's, became less of a weapon and more of a tool. His intelligence, which had been enhanced beyond normal levels, began to calm down. But something interesting happened. Yang did not become a normal crocodile. He remained special. His scales were still more beautiful than normal. He was still larger than any wild crocodile. He was still more intelligent. But he was no longer a weapon. He was no longer a monster. He was something new, something that could exist in nature. Q1 watched the transformation, and she felt something change inside herself as well. When the process was finally complete, they prepared to move Yang, not to a laboratory, not to a prison, but to a facility on Earth, a special place where he could swim and hunt and live, almost like a wild creature. On the day when they prepared to transport him, Q1 stood before Yang one last time. The crocodile looked at her with his golden eyes. He was still intelligent. He was still special. But he was no longer a creation of fear. He was a creation of wisdom, a proof that humans could undo their mistakes and learn from them. "I am sorry," Q1 whispered to the creature. "I am sorry that we created you in fear. I am sorry that we used you because we were afraid. But I am proud that we learned. I am proud that we chose to let you go back to being something natural." Yang made a sound, not a roar, but something quieter. Something that sounded like understanding. And so the greatest creature that humans had ever created was released back into the world. Not as a weapon, not as a symbol of power, but as a living reminder that the most important power is the power to choose what is right, even when it is hard. 1 year after the trial of beasts, Earth's status in the galaxy had completely changed. The mining colony on Kepler 442 now belonged to humans. Massive ships came and went, carrying precious minerals and metals back to Earth. These materials were worth enormous amounts of money. Cities on Earth grew taller. Technology advanced faster. Humans were finally able to compete with the richest species in the galaxy. Trade agreements were rewritten. Other species who had once ignored Earth now wanted to make deals with the humans. They wanted access to Earth's scientific knowledge. They wanted to learn about the technology that had created Yang. Universities and research centers around the world received messages from aliens asking to study there. Governments were offered technology and resources in exchange for information about genetic enhancement and biological engineering. Earth had become important. Earth had become powerful. But with this power came questions. In every country, in every culture, humans asked themselves what they had learned from creating Yang. Some people were proud. They saw Yang as proof that humans were just as smart and just as strong as any other species in the galaxy. They wanted to learn more about genetic engineering. They wanted to create more enhanced animals, maybe even enhanced humans. But others were worried. They remembered that Yang had been created from fear. They remembered that the only reason Yang had been made was because humans were desperate and afraid. Q-1 became famous. She was known as the woman who had created the greatest creature in the galaxy. She received offers of money and power and position. Every government wanted her to work for them. Every rich person wanted to hire her. Every research center wanted her to lead their work. But Q1 said no to almost all of these offers. Instead, she opened a school. It was a place where young scientists from all over the world could come to learn about genetics and biology. But it was not just a school about science. It was also a school about responsibility and ethics. Science is powerful, Q1 would tell her students. But power without wisdom is very dangerous. When you are a scientist, when you have the ability to create new things and change the world, you must always ask yourself an important question. Just because we can do something, should we do it? In the ocean on Earth, Yang lived in a large protected area. The water there was clean and warm. There were plenty of fish for him to eat. Q1 would visit him sometimes, swimming in a special suit that let her breathe underwater. The crocodile would come to her, recognizing her even after years had passed. He would let her touch his scales, and Q1 would feel the weight of what she had created and then released. Yang lived longer than any normal crocodile. He grew slightly larger than any natural crocodile. He was smarter than wild crocodiles. In many ways, he was still exceptional, but he was alive in a natural way. He hunted. He survived. He was part of the world, not separate from it in a laboratory. Wool continued her work in genetic engineering, but always with careful thought. She created animals that could survive in harsh environments. She created fish that could clean up polluted water. She created plants that could grow in deserts. Every creation was designed to help the world, not to hurt it. Heijin became a teacher as well. She taught other scientists about the dangers of moving too fast, of trying to do things before we fully understand them. She told the story of Yang again and again, not as a story of triumph, but as a story of learning. Mincio, the military commander, also learned from what had happened. He began to speak out against using biological weapons in war. He said that while Yang had been created for competition, not for violence, he had still been a weapon. And weapons, he said, were always used, whether humans wanted them to be or not. The best weapon is a weapon that is never created, Mincio said in a speech to the United Nations. We have learned this the hard way. We created Yang, and while it turned out well for us, we were very lucky. The next time, we might not be so lucky. 10 years after the trial of beasts, Q1 was asked to speak at a great gathering of scientists from across the galaxy. Aliens came from hundreds of different worlds to listen to her. She stood before them and told the story of Yang. She told them about the fear that had driven humans to create him. She told them about the victory in the arena. She told them about the hard decision to let him go, to release him back into the world, to undo what they had created. The galaxy looks at Yang as proof that humans are great, Q1 said. But I do not think that is the real lesson. The real lesson is not that we could create Yang. The real lesson is that we understood we should not keep him. The alien scientists listened carefully. Every species in this galaxy has power. Q1 continued. Some have power through military strength. Some have power through technology. Some have power through numbers. But the greatest power that any species can have is the power of wisdom. The power to look at what they have created and ask, is this right? The power to admit when something is wrong. The power to change course even when it costs them. When Q1 finished speaking, the entire assembly was silent for a long moment. Then the aliens began to make their sounds of approval. In their own ways, from their own species. They honored what the humans had done. After the gathering, an ancient alien being who had lived for thousands of years approached Q1. Your species is young, the alien said. You have only recently joined the galactic community. In your youth, you have already learned lessons that many older species never learn. This gives me hope for your future. Q1 thanked the old alien. But she knew that the work was not finished. The lessons of Yang would need to be taught again and again. Each new generation would need to learn that power without responsibility was dangerous. Back on Earth, in the ocean that Yang called home, the great crocodile swam in the warm water. He was old now, much older than any wild crocodile should be. But he was healthy and strong. And sometimes, when Q1 swam near him, he would come close and let her touch him. In those moments, Q1 felt that all the fear and all the doubt and all the hard decisions had been worth it, because they had created something wonderful. But more importantly, they had learned to let it go. They had learned to put wisdom before fear. And that, Q1 believed, was the real victory. That was the real power that would make humanity great in the galaxy.